Hola, konnichiwa, and g'day mates. As I'm starting the tiny studio build project for Music on Main Street, I'm coming back to the wall of principles here to kind of guide the process. And the principle I want to focus on today is create to consume. But I'm not talking about consumption from the consumer standpoint. Rather, making things to use the stuff that I've got. In other words, creating objects, buildings, projects in order to consume the stuff that I've stored. To use it instead of just piling it up. So I'm going to be digging into my piles today to create two modular elements for the tiny studio build. Ones that I can build here and then transport over to the build site once I have the footers in place. And those two elements are going to be floor joist modules and SIPs for the walls. Now a SIP stands for a structural insulated panel. My SIPs are going to be constructed out of foam board between two pieces of zip sheathing, and I'm going to create the pressure with screws connecting the two pieces of wood. So this type of profile here, I'm going to secure this with some adhesive as well as screws. So not a true SIP for the purists out there. However, my SIPs are going to provide some structure for the walls as well as being insulating. While I'm doing this, I'm actually going to sort some of this stuff too. Stuff that's too short that I'm going to use for CNC projects, and the stuff that's long enough for me to use for this build. Alright JW, I heard you. Where are your gloves, Tom? I got a lot of 2x8s that are longer than 3 feet and shorter than 4. And I'm ideally going for a 4x8 foot building. But I think what I'm going to do is 3 sections at 4 by 3 feet. So I can get rid of some of these 3 footers, or rather use them. Kit was lamenting in the comments that nobody uses a hammer anymore, and while I do love my nail gun, I'm actually going to build this with a hammer. I will use the impact wrench for some of the stuff on this project, but no nail gun. That's for you, Kit. I just realized that I need to cut the 3-foot lengths short by 3 inches, since I've got 1.5 inches with my 2x10 on either end. Take that 3 inches out of this length. One thing I'm going to salvage for this project is these nail gun nails that I picked up at the construction site across the street from my house. It's amazing how much gets wasted. I do need to rehab these a little bit first, which I'm going to do with some WD-40. I'll let these sit for a couple of days and then hit them again. Right now I'm going to mark up and put in my internal joists. Alright, now I gotta make 3 more of those. And Kit, hey, thanks for the suggestion. Felt good to swing a hammer. Train's here. Alright, there are my 3 bases that will equal a 4 by 9 foot base for this building. I used up a lot of good dimensional lumber on this. That makes me happy. Since I'm building this here, they're light enough that I can carry them to the trailer and then unload them easily at the job site when I start assembling this. I'm going to use 2 of these to build my SIP on top of. The vinyl side is going to go out. That'd be the green side. I put that piece of foam down. I'm pretty sure the screws I'm going to use are going to go all the way through. So I want to make sure I don't screw into the joists. It's raining, and I got the nice pitter patter on my tarps. Got my nice overhang here protecting me from the rain. So I'm using my new shed as a workspace where I can stay dry but still enjoy the beauty of the outdoors and the sounds of the rain. I'm gonna have the bottom of my SIP extend over the joists. I'm gonna put down my 2x10 and then I need to find a scrap of subfloor to put above that. There's the visual, but now I'm just gonna mark this out with the measuring tape and straight edge. Because my SIP isn't going to be fully structural, I'm going to have a 4x4 post on either end of it. That'll support the rafters. So I'm also going to leave room for that. I'm going to secure this post with clamps because I'm going to leave it in place as I install the foam. The profile of my SIP panel is going to be this polystyrene foam insulation sandwiched between 2 pieces of my zip sheathing. The screws I'm using, which are these 3.5-inch star drive screws from Deckmate. Not a sponsor. I am expecting them to come through the other edge of the zip and I'll cut them off with the grinder. Four layers of foam with the 2 layers of sheathing is going to be just about perfect for my SIP panel. There'll be a little bit of the point sticking through and that will ensure I've got enough threads holding this outer panel in place. Each of these layers is also R3, so that's going to get me R12, which is almost to code, but here's the secret. This building isn't going to be to code. If I keep it under 10 by 10, in my community, I don't need to get a building permit. That's not gonna mean I'm gonna be unsafe in its construction, but I won't need to get inspections. I'm gonna connect these together with the screws, as well as some Liquid Nails subfloor adhesive. The other reason I'm doing this is because I want to use this foam. I've got lots of different pieces of this, scraps, that I've had a hard time throwing away because it's made from oil. I'd much rather have this get used again. The panel will be a little bit less wide than the 4x4, but that's okay. The other dimension I need to account for is going to be a base plate. This will be a 1.5 inch 2x4 that I'll rip down so that it's just the width of my 4 pieces of foam. Then the sheathing panel will actually overhang that to allow me to have a nailing surface on the inside into that base plate. So I'm going to put this down as a ledger to help me out as I install the foam. I'm going to go with a smaller opening on this tube. That one didn't last very long. I'm also blocking in some of the smaller pieces to allow me to stagger my seams. This edge is going to stay ragged for now. I'm just going to make sure I have enough of a overlap to allow for my 4x4 post and not any gaps. The cicadas are providing us with some background accompaniment. And of course, given that it's Georgia and summer, the sun is out again. Drains here. So 3 layers on the foam pretty much used up everything I've got, at least all the scraps. So I'm actually going to stop with 3 instead of 4. That will mean the screws come through a little bit more. I'm happy that I've used all that I have. There's a few scraps left, but the majority is now being utilized again as insulation. You saw that I was able to use a lot of those angular pieces as well, and that just makes me happy. The next step is going to be to trim off my second piece of sheathing. It will be 7 inches less wide and a little bit less tall, which is actually going to conveniently let me remove a couple of bad spots in this piece. Eyes and ears, JW. Drains here. Now I'm going to tilt this up and add some adhesive. Now I'm going to come in with the 3.5-inch screws and screw the whole panel together, connecting both pieces of sheathing through the foam. And finally, I'm going to take 7 inches off the width of the zip sheet to allow for the 4x4 on this side. I'll set my saw blade depth so I slice the foam as well. I'll probably stay a little bit short of going all the way through so I don't nick the sheathing on the other side. And now I'm going to slice the rest of the way through that last layer of foam. Now I'm going to stand it up and cut off the tips of the screws with a grinder. As I cut these off, I'm going to be extra cautious not to nick the green layer, which is vinyl, because that provides the waterproofing surface on this zip system sheathing. I will be coming back and sealing each of the screws when I install the zip panel. This is going to take a few minutes. Let me speed that up for you. Whew. Can't really say I nailed it since it's screws, but you get the point. Alright, so I'm making progress. I've got 2 structural components built for the tiny studio build. My zip sip. Got that cove here for the base plate, and then the reveal to cover the joists and the subfloor. And the space for the 4x4 corner posts on either side. Although technically not a SIP, but it is a structural and insulated panel. Not the traditional way they're made, but when am I traditional? And I've also got my joist boxes. So the next step is for me to sit down with Scott McCready, the owner of Music on Main Street, and we're going to talk through the finer points of the design. So that'll be plasma cut out of that steel. I think we'll let it rust, perhaps,
yeah.
or we could treat it so it's darker, blackened. Right. Starting with these 2 components allowed me to get some work done while Scott is finishing up his summer concert series. We've already agreed that the process can stay intuitive, so we're going to sketch out the design, but leave it open to some interpretation along the way. And you know I love working like that. Let me thank my patrons and members for helping make these videos possible. And as always, I appreciate the vote of confidence and the support. As always, my mission here at GreenShortz is to help you see green so you can be green and save a little green. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next Saturday.